I'm in the garden room now. This is one of my most happy times when I can hand something over to someone else and just get away from it all and not have to worry about doing any of the work myself for a little while. It frees me up to go and do other jobs, things I really enjoy doing. So we did all the plasterboard, we got it all ready, and it's a bit of a painstaking job. You know, you've got these angles. We had an insulated plasterboard on the ceiling, which is a bit more difficult to cut, especially when you want to make it nice and accurate. Then obviously we had all the walls to do, but prior to that, you've got to get all your services in, electrics, we've got plumbing in walls, we've got sort of Cat 6 cables, we've also got controls for underfloor heating. The list is endless, and you've got to make sure you've got all of that in before you plasterboard and then before you get someone in to do it. So I've got Ashley, who's been kind enough to come along and do all this sort of work. So I wanted to talk to you, ask you questions about plastering, because there'll be people watching who maybe have had plastering done. There'll be other people watching who've thought about having plastering done. So let me ask you a few questions and it will help everyone out there. So first of all, how long does it take to become a plasterer?
God, blimey. Well, I'm quite fortunate. My dad's a plasterer,
right.
So I went straight on the Hawk and Trail. But if you take your time, 5 years.
5 years.
5 years, yeah. Hard work.
But the key is having someone to show you, isn't it?
Yeah. You need a good trainer. College always helps, but you learn most in the trade.
So basically, you had work experience with your dad, but did you want to be a plasterer?
At first, no, I wanted to be a chef.
Did you?
Chef, yeah. But things didn't work out, so I followed my dad's footsteps, and here I am.
Okay. So, but how long was it before you actually started your own thing, doing your own work?
So I started on myself probably about 3 years after starting with my dad.
All right.
And that's when I started really learning more about the trade.
Yeah.
Working with different plasterers as well.
Yeah.
And you pick up things as you go along.
Yeah, because I mean, there's it's one of those things that people love looking at plastering. They love seeing it being done. They love seeing the finish. And I think that tackling a job, for example, I mean, you seem to be really organised in terms of clean, tidy, methodical. And I think that's key, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's always about a clean canvas. Start the day nice and clean, finish the day clean.
Yeah, and how do you think, in a room like this, how do you tackle it? Where do you start? Where do you think, where am I going to start? Is there a set routine?
You always want to try and start on the ceilings.
Right.
And then, because if you start on the walls first, you end up getting it filthy, covered in plaster with all the splashes.
Ah.
So you always want to start on the ceilings and work your way down. Try and do wall, opposite walls
And so the first process I saw you putting the scrim tapes on.
Yep, absolutely.
And the scrim tape, it goes on every join.
Yep.
And sometimes you put it around corners of doorways.
Yeah, I like to put it around corners. And I also like to put it around beads, just to prevent if there's a crack.
Yeah.
Cracking point on the beads, always put them down the side of the beads.
Okay, that's a really good idea. So once you've done that, you've done all your scrimming, then you go round and pick where to start.
We started on the ceilings first. And then once we've done the ceilings, we worked our way down.
On the walls, all right, brilliant. And how many, when you look at a job like this, how do you work out how much plaster you need?
Oh, it's all up here.
Is it?
Yeah,
right,
it's all experience.
Yeah. I mean, does the quality of the plasterboard make a lot of difference to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Because the better the plasterboard, the less finish you're going to need. So
yeah.
If it's all over the place, if it's an old house, you're going to need more plaster filling all the gaps.
Right. So when you started with your dad years ago, did you turn up on a job and think, God, this looks all right? Like as opposed to now turning up on a job and seeing the plasterboard and thinking, it's a bit iffy. Do you find that?
It's mix and match, isn't it? It is mix and match. I suppose it depends who you're working for.
Yeah.
If it's a client and they're giving it a go themselves, then sometimes that can be a bit of a messy one. But and a lot of bonding involved. But usually it's good. Usually it is good.
Give me a run through your trowel. You know this flexible trowel? Just have a little look at that and tell me what's the whole new thing. Because years ago the plasterers would just have a steel trowel.
Yeah.
Like you can see you've got a steel trowel.
We've got a steel trowel. So the way I do things is sort of a seven stages of the plastering. So you've got your steel, your laying down trowel, which is one you want to start off with.
Right.
And after you've done the first and second coat, I usually flatten down with a flex.
Right.
Or some people use a speed skim.
Okay.
Which is a big old, it's like a rule.
I've seen them, yeah.
Plastic rule, and they flatten it down.
Biox.
Yeah, that's it, Biox. And Neela do one now as well. So that's one, be careful it's sharp.
Is this metal?
Yeah.
So that is actually metal?
Yeah.
It's so thin.
Yeah.
You don't want to razor sharp.
Yeah, you don't want to cut yourself on that one. And this is just the steel one. This is the one I started off with, still have it today.
And So that's the original plastering trowel that you bought?
I started off with, yeah.
Did you have to break it in?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. How long does it take?
Cool. I tell you what, it takes a long time to get it like this.
Does it?
Yeah.
And it's actually got, when I look through that, it's actually got a tiny bit of curve to it where you've been pushing and pushing and pushing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? And these are that thin. That's how thin they are. But they're long and thin.
Yeah, thin, and they've got a nice bit of flex to them.
Yeah. So they're half the thickness of that trowel, and they're your main two weapons of choice.
They're my main two weapons. Yeah, absolutely.
And you will use that for pretty much everything. What about when you had to get into these little angles there? That was like
we use a pointing trowel.
Really?
Yeah, I've got a nice little fancy trowel somewhere.
With angles on it?
Yeah, with angles on it.
I think that's the hardest thing, isn't it?
It is hard, yeah. And I also like to sponge my plastering, which is a big debate in the plastering world.
Is it?
Do you sponge or do you trowel?
What's the
So I find with a sponge, it flattens out more and gives it a nicer finish. That's my personal preference.
Right, okay.
But some plasterers just go straight on with the trowel. So this one also is good. If it's starting off, it's good as well. Gets you out of trouble.
Does it?
If it's drying off quickly, gets you out of trouble. So it just livens up the plaster, and then you can have a little play with it.
And it cleans all right, because you'd think that would get ruined. It's a funny sponge, isn't it?
Yeah, we got one there.
That's amazing.
Got a refiner sponge there, so that's a new one.
Oh, that's a newer one.
Yeah, and that one's worn in.
Yeah, because I have seen this before actually, when people have got a sponge. I mean, what's that all about? It's like washing the car. But yeah, so the sponge is a new thing, and then fast set plaster. Have you heard of that? Have you used it yet?
I have heard of it. I haven't used it.
No. Are you going to give it a go?
I like the old school way. I like the traditional way, but who knows? If it comes across, I might give it a go.
Quick fire questions: sand and cement, or bonding, or hard wall?
Bonding.
So you prefer bonding?
Yeah, I prefer bonding.
Over hard wall?
Yeah.
Over sand and cement?
Yeah.
Because not a lot of times we don't use a lot of sand and cement renders indoors anymore.
No, not so much. Yeah, not so much. Bathrooms.
Bathrooms?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, when I did my time, all the internal stuff was always sand and cement.
Yeah.
And then Cerophyte finish. And then multi-finish, I can only remember seeing that in the sort of late 80s when I finished my apprenticeship. And it used to be grey. Do you still get grey anywhere?
Bonding, I think uptown it is grey still. Yeah. Sometimes it can be grey or brown.
And now it's all pink, because years ago it went for a period of having, you'd go to some merchants, you'd get grey. You'd go and buy some from another place and it would be pink. And it used to look so bizarre.
Yeah.
So okay, so you're nearly done. What's the last thing you'll be doing now? You've just put these last walls on there.
Yeah, I've got the last walls on. They've had their final trowel. I'm now just on my last hit now. I've got a second coat to go on these ones. And then after that, sponge and trowel up. And have a good old clear up.
And then you're done. Well, I mean, it's enlightening, mate. Thanks very much. I'll go and make us a cup of coffee.
Lovely stuff.
And I'll see you again soon.
See you soon.
All right,
Take
nice
care,
one, actually. Cheers.